reviewed by Corporation Counsel, who indicated to me it is compliant with the executive orders issued by the governor and fair for those watching from a remote location. Would everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you, everyone. I'll start off with a roll call. Please verbally indicate you are present when your name is called. Commissioner Kelly?
Present.
Commissioner Parkins?
Present.
Commissioner Motto?
Here.
Commissioner Ticky?
Present.
Myself, Commissioner Harger. Commissioner Laskos?
Present.
Commissioner Usel?
Present.
Mr. Rossetti, our administrator?
Present.
Mr. O'Neill, our assistant administrator and CEO?
Here.
Mr. Nappy, our downtown projects coordinator?
He's also here,
Okay,
logging in.
all right, then we can ask for him again. Mr. Panico, our consultant?
He doesn't have his mic on.
Tony, put your mic on, you're on mute.
Sorry about that.
Okay, so Mr. Panico?
Here,
You're here. Mrs. Vernassos, our recording secretary?
Here.
And Ms. Charbonneau, our stenographer?
I'm present.
Okay, Mr. Nappy, are you logged in? Not yet, okay. All right, for the record, Commissioner Radomski indicated to me he was unavailable for today's meeting. A couple of points before we continue with today's agenda. This is the Commission's 40th meeting being done via a live streaming process. Mr. Rossetti will act as a Zoom meeting host, while commissioners will be able to make comments throughout the meeting. The chair asks that you please identify yourself and wait to be recognized by the chair before speaking to make sure we are not all speaking over each other and to make sure our recording secretary is clear as to who is speaking. Our two agenda items today are public hearings. After each public hearing is announced, the applicant will begin by making a presentation of its proposal. During and after the presentation, the commission will have an opportunity to ask questions of the applicant, which can be answered at that time or after the presentation. After the presentation has been completed and after the commission has finished asking questions, members of the public will be invited to address the commission about the proposal. Members of the public addressing the commission during today's public hearings need to be mindful of the following. After you are identified by Mr. Rossetti, please state and spell your name and state your address to assist the recording secretary and the stenographer when doing the minutes and transcript of the public hearing. All questions or comments are to be directed to the commission chair and to the chair only, not to the applicant and or his associates. No dialogue is permitted between the public and the applicant or any of the applicant's associates. All comments from the public should address specific criteria of the zoning regulations and the merits of the application. All comments from the public should be new information and not a repeat of comments previously presented. Unless a member of the public has new comments to or questions of the chair, members of the public who wish to address the commission are asked to briefly indicate whether or not they are in agreement with the previous speaker and not repeat the same testimony. Members of the public are expected to practice appropriate etiquette by being quiet, observant, and respectful. Disruptive attendees may be removed from verbally participating. After all the members of the public who participate today finished addressing the commission, the applicant will be given the opportunity to respond to public comments or questions. After the applicant and or his associates have concluded the presentation, they've answered all questions and they've addressed all concerns from the commission and or public. And if no further information is needed by the commission, the chair will ask for a motion to close the public hearing. If the commission feels further information is needed, the chair will ask for a motion to keep the public hearing open. If the public hearing closes, the chair will poll the commission for a consensus on whether or not there is any reason not to vote on the application. And a reminder to the commission that once a public hearing has opened and until it is closed, commissioners are not permitted to make any public comment, discuss any part of the applicant's presentation, or receive additional information from anyone. So we'll begin with the first public hearing, application 2110, Riverside Retail Center, LLC at 131 Canal Street, Assessors Map 130, Lot 2, petition for modification of special exception application number 15-17 in the Riverfront District Zone. Commissioner Amato, you have the public hearing notice, so please read that for the benefit of everyone.
The Shelton Planning and Zoning Commission of the City of Shelton, Connecticut hereby gives notice of a public hearing to be held virtually on Wednesday, July 21st at 6 p.m. via Zoom. Consider the following. 1, initiation of application 21-10 Riverside Retail Center, LLC. The site is zoned Riverfront District RFD and is generally bounded as follows: northerly by Houstonic River, easterly by Houstonic River, southerly by 123 Canal Street, westerly by 6 Bridge Street and Canal Street East. This proposed modification intends to convert second floor office space in an existing 2-story retail commercial building into 8 apartments with on-site parking. The plans titled Riverside Commercial Center were prepared by Geddes Associates, Inc. and Primrose Companies.
Thank you, Commissioner Amato.
Sure.
This particular application was accepted for review on May 26, 2021. A public hearing was scheduled by staff for today. The special exception application, statement of uses and standards, floor plans for the second floor are on the city's website. Mr. Rossetti, were any comments received from the public that we need to acknowledge for the record? Mr. Rossetti?
I'm sorry, I missed that.
Okay,
Cut out.
okay. Were there any comments received from the public that we need to acknowledge for the record?
There were not.
Okay, and I just want to go back. Mr. Nappy has joined us and he is present for this particular meeting. Is that correct, Mr. Nappy? Can you hear me? Okay, thank you. All right, very good. So we're all present and accounted for. Who's representing the applicant?
Chairwoman, this is John Geddes, and I'm representing the applicant.
Thank you very much. Go ahead and proceed with your presentation.
Members of the commission, for the record, I'm John Geddes. I'm the developer of the Canal Riverfront area. This project, or this building, as the commission knows, was part of the development of the Roll-Fight SpongeX site that was went through the approvals back, I believe it was in 2017. And the intent at the time was, and this was before COVID, that we would have retail on the first floor and some office space on the second floor. For the past 3 years, Hudson Realty has attempted to lease out the space on the second floor, and it has had no success whatsoever. So as you may know, the first floor right now, even though it was difficult, but we have pretty much 75% of the bottom space leased. The restaurant should be operational within the next 6 or 8 weeks. And we have an optometrist that is going to occupy 2 of the spaces. So it'll be basically 75% leased out. However, the second floor, we had no success. So the decision that I made was to proceed to ask for a modification to allow for 8 apartments, which would be mostly 1 bedroom. There's 1 efficiency, 6 1-bedroom and 1 2-bedroom apartments. And all within, the interior space that exists. There's no expansion of what's there. But, unfortunately, as you know, this building was built almost 3 years ago and it's been sitting empty. So we have to do something with it. the parking requirements. I'm sorry,
Excuse me for a minute. Could you just go over that unit count again? You have one studio?
1 studio, 6 one-bedroom, and 1 two-bedroom.
That's 9. That adds up to 9. Are you sure you didn't mean 5 one-bedroom?
One
That adds up to 8.
efficiency,
Is there?
one efficiency, 6 one-bedroom, and 1 two-bedroom.
Oh, okay, you reduced the bet 1 to 1 bedroom. Okay. So there's only
Yeah,
one.
there's a
bedroom.
total of 8 apartments.
Okay,
Most of them are, the majority are 1 bedroom.
okay.
Okay, basically,
Revised
the 8
plan?
apart, I'm sorry?
Do we have revised floor plans?
No, that's the plans you have are what we have.
What was on the website shows
Yeah, the
unit
one that I have.
101 and 108 were 2-bedroom.
Oh, I'm sorry, again, it's been a while since I looked at the plans, but then it's 2 bedrooms. 2 bedrooms, 5 one bedroom and 1 efficiency.
Right, okay.
Okay, so, I didn't, well, okay. It's been a while since I drew these plans.
Okay,
But, again, it's working within the space that exists. And, I'm sorry,
go ahead.
okay. But basically, the space that exists on the 2nd floor, the request is to allow the modification to convert it into 8 apartments.
Mhm.
And if we go by the plan that I had prepared some time back, we're dealing with a total of 10 bedrooms. So it's again, there's no expansion of what's there. It's working within the footprint that exists. As we've had tremendous success with the apartments that are being developed in the downtown area. I'm very pleased with it, not only for what I've accomplished, but also, the others such as Melisi and Stenziel and now the Silva. It's something that is what I had envisioned almost 18 years ago, and it continues to happen. And so there is a demand for it. Basically, I'm of the belief that as this continues, this trend, this will assist the business community within the downtown area, and it'll bring new interest, for additional commercial space, which has been very difficult, to attract new, with all the developments been going on Bridgeport Avenue, it's been very difficult to compete. So I'm, I believe that this trend will continue, and the more people that we bring into the downtown area to live, the better it will be for the commercial, the existing commercial spaces and the new ones that will be created.
Okay, Mr. Getz, how many parking spaces and how are you calculating that?
Well, again, the parking is always, as we all know, it's always been difficult in the downtown area. This year, the number of, the way that I view it is that the number of parking spaces that will be needed will sort of be offset by what was being provided through the previous, development. If you look at the original approvals for this site, and it's always, and I know it's always a difficult task to try to interpret how we dealt with the parking situation from the very beginning when the Birmingham was developed, and that is that the thought it was that there's plenty of parking available in the downtown area. This one development in particular, when the initial permit was, or the initial approval was granted, it was structured that, and it stipulated that 70 parking spaces would be available to both SpongeX and Roll Fight on the site across behind the farmer's market. So far, the way that, I see it is that here, if we have 10 bedrooms, chances are we'll need, 12 vehicles, 13 at the most. The amount of spaces that we would need for the office would probably be equivalent, if not a little more, given, the requirements for employees and then visitors and so forth. So I believe firmly that the apartments will probably require less parking than it would, the office space.
Yeah, I don't see that calculation anywhere. So I don't know how others on the commission feel, if that is less than what potentially could be or more, because we just don't know the age of who would occupy the ones that are 2-bedroom, if the second bedroom would be occupied by minors that don't drive and don't have a vehicle. And for the ones that are even the 1 and 2 bedroom, even though there's 1 bedroom, there could be 2 occupants there and each have their own car. So you could have as many as 20, 22 cars. And are they going to be have reserved spaces in a certain part of the parking lot, or is it going to be wherever you can find a space when you get home, that's where you park? Is there going to be a conflict with SpongeX? Is there going to be a conflict?
Well, the way
restaurant?
we've been handling that is, and that's pretty much the way everybody's been handling it in the downtown areas, that one space is assigned, and then the balance, they're being instructed to park behind the farmer's market. That's pretty much, it's what we've been finding, quite frankly, is that if we didn't have, and again, I don't want to place blame on any of the other developments in the location, but quite frankly, at the parking at our parking facilities, we've been having major issues with people from Avalon, or the previous owner, but I don't know, but the Avalon complex parking at our areas, and we've had these discussions multiple times. The problem that we have with the Avalon complex is that they provide one free space, and then the second space they have to pay for it. So they're not, the people don't want to pay for it, and that's why we have the congestion we have on Canal Street. And, we've even started, instructing vehicles to be towed. We don't want to be bad neighbors, but, right now, if we did not have the issues that we've been having with others parking, and again, it may be a major problem because the retail center has been empty for so long that people just assumed that, they could park there. But, I believe that the parking that's there is adequate. And I also believe that, that any overflow can be accommodated behind the farmer's market as the original approval stipulated.
Okay, before we go any further, I just went back in my notes and I neglected to acknowledge that without Commissioner Radomski here, Commissioner Laskos would be sitting in his place. So I just want to make sure that that's on the record. I apologize for the oversight. Mr. Panico, were you about to ask a question?
I was simply going to comment that with the earlier approval was granted on the basis of a provision that's in the RFD regulations that allows for shared parking. And what this in effect is asking for indirectly, although John may not have stated it that way, but for the commission to approve it, they would have to agree that these additional spaces that are not shown can be attained through the shared parking arrangement. The original development required a total of 146 spaces. Of those 146, 122 were actually provided. So there was a shared parking concession for 24 spaces. There still is room for conceding or shared parking of another 20, 22 or 23 spaces. So it's within the ability, if the commission feels confident, that they can grant it. So that's the mechanism by which you would approve something that doesn't meet the theoretical parking requirement.
Right. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Getz, when you were talking about parking, the one assigned of anybody else in that unit would have to park in the farmer's market. You're talking about the Conti, the parking lot next to the Conti building that the city leases?
Well, I don't, again, I've never heard it say is the county parking lot, because I believe that's the city leases
Yeah,
that.
the city leases it. It's just for a matter of
Yeah.
geography. We've been referring to that
Well,
lot.
I would ask,
Conti building.
Mr., I could, I would refer this again back to Mr. Panico, because again, within the way that he wrote the approval, there's a clause in there that stipulates that additional parking was being made available at that location.
Yes, the only unfortunate part is when your approval was granted for the overall project, it was represented that there would be public parking on the Chromium site. Well, of course, now that's a thing of the past. So we need to take that into account as well.
Yeah,
Well, I don't think within the approval of the SpongeX roll fight development that the Chromium was even in the discussion.
No, but in the discussion and narrative preceding the action on the overall project, that was mentioned as one of the considerations.
Yeah, well, obviously that's not going to happen. Look, all of this, again, I've been at 18 years at this, and I know, what is required and what we need to deal with. All I know is this, that I spent a ton of monies redeveloping roll fight and SpongeX. I spent a ton of money building a bypass road, which was needed tremendously. And all I can tell you is this, right now, economically, I've had a building that I built, which the commission wanted. I didn't want to build it, but the commission wanted some, or at least the certain individuals requested that I include some commercial development on the Canal Street strip. I've been sitting on this building for 3 years. Granted, we got hit with COVID and that threw everything off, but I need to convert the second floor of this building to apartments. And again, the requirement for parking, I believe, is adequate. It's being met by what we have there. And I also believe strongly that if we had office space, granted there is some sharing because at certain hours, the office space would be vacated. But again, I feel strongly, I believe strongly that we have adequate parking to accommodate these 8 apartments.
it would be helpful, Mr. Getz, if you could provide a site plan that shows the 2 buildings and all the parking spaces lined so that we can see the overall count and their juxtaposition to each of the buildings. The restaurant that you referred to that's going to be an occupant there, would they have late evening hours starting it for lunch and continuing throughout the afternoon and ending late evening? Do you have any idea of that?
To be honest with you, we weren't involved with the permit process. My understanding is that it is a sit-down restaurant. It is under construction. It was always the plan was always for that. I don't have a lot of information on it. Again, it was always part of the initial or the overall program that a restaurant would be there, facing the water.
Yeah, I understand that. But Mr. Rossetti, do we have any paper trail as to this particular tenant coming before the commission? I don't recall anything.
No, they were approved by staff level. It's an as of right, simple permit.
Okay, so what do you know about hours of operation? Do you?
I don't recall.
All right, that's something that we should definitely,
Can I just ask
Oh,
about?
why did that?
Yeah, the parking, is there parking on site? I guess it's a simple question. Is there one parking space per apartment on
Yes,
site?
yes.
And I think that's our requirement.
The applicant meets.
No, the
parking
zoning requirement is in this zone is 2 spaces per unit.
Oh, it is because it's the RFD?
Yes.
Riverfront District, oh, two. And we have that.
Well,
So-
parking
it part of the
parking
shared-
was balanced on the overall approval based on the office use of the second floor. And as Mr. Geddes pointed out, that presumed 1 space per so many square feet, which gave
Right.
him 8 parking spaces that had been allocated already for the upper floor. And he has 8 units, so he's representing that he feels for normal occupancy, that's enough.
Mhm.
And that's
The-
still within the approval. All the commission needs to do is agree with that and approve it as part of the shared parking arrangement.
Mhm.
So the,
Really is
The-
doable unless the commission feels there is not enough parking in the area.
Mhm.
in the
Mr. Bennett,
original,
Okay, can we have Mr. Rossetti? I think he's trying to say something.
in the original approval, there were approximately 24 spaces, part of the, for part of the office space count on the second floor. Granted, part of that might have been as part of the shared count,
Mhm.
given that, the commission is concerned about parking, and at most they could request, 2 spaces per unit. There are 8 extra units, or not units, 8 extra spaces now, compared to the office space, which had a higher density.
Mhm.
No, Alex, you might be interpreting that incorrectly, but I'm not positive. We can go over that though.
Mhm.
I have a question for Mr. Geddes, if I might. I just want to confirm there are no exterior modifications to the building?
None whatsoever.
Okay, good. And could you just answer the commission's question? I happen to be chatting with the chairman today, and the question came up about whether or not you were required to provide handicap access to the second floor.
No, it's not required. It's under the,
Are you below
The
the
requirement.
threshold? Is that it?
yeah.
Mhm.
It was 10 units. This is under the adaptive reuse program.
Okay.
Hmm.
Adaptive reuse, huh?
Yeah.
It's never been used.
Well, no, but I mean, existing buildings will allow for adaptive reuse. Meaning the building is built, there's nothing you can do with it.
All right, if the staff could document where in the regs that appears, I would appreciate it. All right. Mr. Rossetti, do we need any report from the city engineer or the fire marshal? I would think the fire marshal, seeing these are residential units. Alex, you're.
The city engineer does not need to see the plans. We will submit them to the fire marshal, but the building is already sprinkled and
Mhm.
it's very obvious that there's
Different
adequate space.
Yeah.
There will not be an issue.
Okay.
Members of the commission, I just want to, one of the things that we did implement in order to sort of move this process further is that the building originally was not required to have a fire protection system.
Mhm.
And to do this, we had to bring in a fire line. And, again, it was done with the fire marshal's involvement and to sprinkle both the lower level and the upper level. A new fire line was brought in, a few months back, so that the building is now fully sprinkled.
Mhm. Okay, well, that's good to know. All right, any commissioners have any questions for the applicant?
Well, Jenny, I appreciate your recommendation that we be able to see a complete plan with all of the parking on it. Because all of these numbers and comparisons to a previous permit, I'm finding it hard to follow.
Mhm.
So,
Absolutely. Was there somebody else that wanted to speak up? Go ahead.
Chairwoman,
Park-
Commissioner Parkins, a couple questions. I missed when Mr. Geddes was saying what commercial entities are going into the first floor. So the restaurant,
Yeah, the restaurant is the same, space that was initially allocated when we went through the approval process. And then the second is there's an optometrist office going in.
optometrist?
Yes, we had, as you may, Commission may or may not know, we also had a lease with Dunkin' Donuts for the corner, at the end unit. But, they ultimately, decided not to go there.
So you still have one vacant commercial
There's one
property?
vacant, again, and the reason was that, as I said, we had a lease with Dunkin', and they just, once COVID hit, the policies for new Dunkin' Donuts, I guess, went to, drive-ups. And obviously, this building does not allow for drive-up, or could allow, but there's no, with all the other parking issues,
Mhm.
there's no way of providing, backup or stacking or anything. So, basically, they decided that they would not go in there.
Okay.
My other comment is regarding the shared parking. Typically shared parking, you try to balance, you figure you've got, the second floor filled with offices. So they are there during the day using the parking places, and then they leave for the nighttime. And that's when the residents use the parking places for parking overnight. So I'm just not sure now, not having that situation. And then you referenced Avalon giving one free space and then telling the people that they have to find other space. But I guess it sounds like this is the same scenario where you're providing one parking place permitted. Hopefully there's some sort of signage, because I see this becoming a real nightmare down there. And then the other, if they have two cars, they've got to park it elsewhere as well. So
Commissioner, two things. One is, I think that the issue with Avalon has been there from the beginning. One of the biggest problems that Canal Street has had, and I know that over the years, we've had the police ticketing and doing whatever. If you go there any day,
Yeah.
we're under construction at 223, and we try to warn people that it's a hazardous area, because you got all the activity going on, and we can't, as far as they're concerned, that's their parking space, even in front of the construction site.
the problem with
but-
Avalon is that they didn't tell us that they were going to charge for parking.
No,
So they weren't giving one spot free. They were charging for parking. They did
Right.
not tell us that, and bad on us for not asking. We ask all developers now, are you going to charge for that one parking place?
Mhm.
Well, unfortunately here, that's not the case, but look, all I can tell you is this, that, on the first floor of the building, it was meant to be all retail. The optometrist is taking, a quarter of the space. That's office. So they're not going to, again, they're going to be there during the working hours, and once they're through, that, the parking for them is not going to be required. So even though we're giving up the office on the second floor, we technically are putting in offices on the first floor.
John, did I understand that you are instructing your tenants in the rehab building that they can park one car on site and then they have to go off site?
No, we're asking them that, the problem we have with SpongeX is that some people have more than two cars. They're working, it's workforce housing. So you may have, a pickup truck or whatever. So we're telling them that they have plenty of parking behind Farmers Market if they have, multiple cars.
But do you
But
allow them to
we've
park their second
assigned-
vehicle on site?
Right. We've actually, and again, I unfortunately, I thought I had submitted it, but we actually have and I think that was part of the original submission, when we went through the initial approval process, that we have parking in front of Spongex. We have a section at the center, which is a section adjacent to the corner of the now Riverside Drive and Canal Street, whereby the vehicles, that are part of the Spongex are assigned. So there are assignment of spaces.
Mhm. Okay.
And again, I'll send down
Somehow or other,
the site plan.
It's never an issue when we're going through approvals, but in operation, it becomes an issue.
Mhm.
Well, it's, again, I think this has always been the case with every, site that we're dealing with in the downtown area. I mean, look, when, and if we go back to the Birmingham, when we initially went through the process, if you look at the original plans, there was parking that was being, set up along the railroad track, and, there were various locations. Unfortunately, some of those locations never panned out,
Mhm.
or that they were provided to others, so, again, it's always been limited space to provide parking, and, and again, the unfortunate thing is that, and I've gone to this, down there numerous times over the years, and if you look at, the parking lot behind the farmer's market, which is only, minutes walk from any location, there's nobody there. I mean, if you go there any time of the day, you'll find that the majority of the parking spaces behind the farmer's market are vacant. And that's, and again, that's municipal parking. It's available to anyone.
Where's
But-
that, John? Where are you
Behind-
talking? The
Behind the
post
farmer's
office?
market.
Oh, behind the
It's
farmers.
a gas company lot.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, go there any time of the day, any day of the week.
John, the only problem is every time we get a project, that lot is thrown out as the place where you can go park. We're gonna be
Yeah, but
hearing, we're hearing this
Yeah.
one, we're gonna be hearing another one from you later tonight after this, and then we're gonna hear another one from you across the street.
No,
We're gonna make the same statement on all three projects.
no, Mr. Panico, you gotta wait until the next one, the next project comes,
Mhm.
which will be in a few minutes. Because that one, I made sure that we have more than 2-to-1 ratio.
Okay,
So you'll be surprised if you haven't already looked at the plans. Look, all I can say is this, that
several times.
parking is, and again, parking is always going to be an issue in the downtown area until certain things happen. And that is that if private sector takes the issue at heart, similar to what I did with the River View Park Royal, which is the next item on the agenda, and is able to create a number of parking that's more than required, there'll always be an issue. And again, the thing is this, that the number of or the land that's available for future development from here on is demolition of buildings.
Mhm.
You have
So
to admit, this commission has been
move
more
on
than
on this.
cooperative in attempting to recognize the realities of downtown development. And they have been very generous in their approach to parking. They've realized it and they work with it. So far, absent the Avalon situation, we haven't been doing too bad.
Okay.
yeah,
What's
again,
Mr. P-
my understanding is that the mayor is going to support a private, municipal partnership to put up a parking garage. So if that happens, that'll alleviate a lot of the issues.
You will.
We'll be
I'd
asking
like
you
to-
that question about your parking garage and make sure that they're free spaces.
Yeah. Look, let's move on, please. One of the things that hasn't been brought up by anyone is, Mr. Getz, do you plan on identifying any of these 8 units as affordable housing?
No. as far as I'm concerned, I always wanted, as part of the master plan of development for Canal Street, I always wanted to have an affordable component. And that's why 223 Canal right now is the affordable component to the development.
That's a whole separate unit plate down the street.
Well, but I realize that, but we're looking at 45 affordable units at 223 Canal.
Mhm,
That's the total amount that's being provided there.
mhm.
I don't think that, we still have, 4 sites left to develop, and those, there may be a consideration for, 10% on it, but here, on this site, the economics, that's just not work.
Okay, well, I wanted to make sure it got on the record because we do ask any applicant that's doing residential in the downtown area or anywhere else in town, do you plan to designate some affordable housing in this particular proposal? So is there any commissioner that has any questions, comments for the applicant before we move on?
I just have one further thing. I think, and Mr. Getz alluded to this, and I can appreciate the hardship of not being able to find tenants at the time. But I think the reason the commission back then wanted the commercial was because we want mixed use. And we understand that some of those apartment buildings along Canal Street just cannot support mixed use. But it's vital for us to have mixed use down there. It's vital for us to bring in quality shops and grocery stores rather than just convenience stores. It's paramount for downtown to thrive. It can't just be filled with apartments.
Mhm,
We
absolutely.
need mixed use.
Yep.
We need people to stay and not get in their cars to drive here or drive there. We need that component, not more pizza places or nail shops. And I understand that the commission cannot control that, but
Mhm.
something needs to be done to entice a butcher store. Or, I mean, you go to any place, a city like Raleigh, it's amazing what they can do. And I just don't think anybody's being creative in bringing that element downtown.
Mhm.
Well,
Typically, we're not
well,
giving
again,
up any
wait until the
ground
next,
level.
the next item on the agenda, and you'll see that I introduced that
Okay,
into
well,
the program.
let's
so-
wait to hear about that in that particular,
Yeah.
because what I want to ask Mr. Rossetti, are there any members of the public who would like to address the commission on this particular application?
So if there are any members viewing the Zoom right now, if you'd like to comment, please raise your hand through Zoom. And we'll be happy to recognize you.
Okay, had been somebody in chat that put a message on the grant. I live on Canal Street. I'm interested in the meeting about construction on that road, so I'm not sure if it's for this application or the next one. So, so if there's anyone that is listening in via Zoom or by phone and they would like to make a comment, we need to know about that now. All right, any last call for any commissioners that have any comments for the applicant?
And Jenny, excuse me, Chairwoman, hang on one second. Let me allow this person to talk.
Okay, so we have someone?
Yeah.
Okay, so the person that's going to make comments, we need to know your name and your address for the record, and you can go ahead.
Sure. My name is Rebecca LeGrant. I'm at 145 Canal Street. Oop. I was just curious about the traffic that's going to be brought in with more apartments there. It's difficult enough as, we see more and more cars coming. I know there's work on the bridge being done, but I was just curious about that.
Okay, thank you very much. Does the applicant want to discuss anything along that? Because to tell you the truth, I was going to ask if there was anything from the traffic authority, which is the police department.
Well, again, when we're dealing with Canal Street, the creation of Riverside Drive basically bypasses most of the traffic heading up north on Canal Street. Right now, anybody traveling north on Canal Street is basically people that live either at Avalon or Birmingham. That's one factor. The second factor is that we're dealing with introduction of 8 additional apartments in lieu of the office. Now, the apartments you'll have, for the most part, anticipate that it'll be workforce housing, and therefore you'll have people coming in the evening and leaving in the morning, or vice versa. Whereas in the office space, that it would be traffic on a constant basis for not only the employees, but depending on the type of businesses, the visitors.
Mhm.
So I think that overall, traffic-wise, the apartments will generate less trips than the office use.
Okay, and just for the record, 145 Canal Street is the Birmingham residential building. Okay, any other comments, questions, or concerns from Ms. LeGrant?
No, I'm fine.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments, questions, or concerns from the commissioners? Mr. Panico,
Not at this time.
Mr. Rossetti, Mr. O'Neill, Mr. Nappi? Okay. All right, seeing that there is none, is there a motion to continue the public hearing for application 2110?
Are we continuing it to consider the parking more and
Well, I did request that we get a site plan that shows clearly the 2 buildings and the parking. Comments from the traffic authority would be appreciated. And it would be nice if we could just get a better insight as to the hours of operation for the restaurant. So.
I'll make a motion to continue the public hearing.
Okay, there's a motion to continue from Commissioner Motto. Is there a second?
Second it.
Second from Commissioner Kelly. So on the motion to continue the public hearing for application 2110 made by Commissioner Motto and seconded by Commissioner Kelly, I'll do a roll call. Commissioner Ticky?
Aye.
Commissioner Parkins?
Aye.
Commissioner Motto?
Aye.
Commissioner Laskos?
Aye.
Commissioner Kelly?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion to continue public hearing passed 6-0, and staff will schedule the continuation of this application. From what I understand, with the email that was sent out from staff earlier this afternoon, the continuation would be August 18th. So please check your email for that particular email that was sent at 4:14 this afternoon. That gives the meeting schedule for July, August, and September, and which projects are on what meetings. Okay, so next agenda item is application 20-22, Riverview Park Royal, Dominic Thomas for Canal Properties LLC at 113 to 123 Canal Street. Commissioner Motto, would you please read the public hearing notice?
This is for, as you had said, application 20-22, 113 to 123 Canal Street, assessors map 130, lots 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Petition for a special exception. The site consists of 2.574 plus or minus acres and is zoned riverfront district. The site is generally bounded as follows: northerly by 131 Canal Street, easterly by Housatonic River, southerly by 37 Canal Street, Veterans Park, westerly by Canal Street East. This proposal is for a 5-story mixed-use building, 11,000 square feet of retail, commercial space on the first floor, and 92 studio, 1 and 2 bedroom apartments with on-site parking. The plans titled Park Royal were prepared by J. Edward and Associates Engineers and Geddes Associates, Inc., Architects. All supporting material is on file, in the Planning and Zoning Office and available online. Okay.
Very good. For Mr. Rossetti, any comments received from the public that need to be acknowledged?
No, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. Who's representing the applicant?
Attorney Dominic Thomas, Cohen and Thomas, 315 Main Street, Derby, Connecticut, representing the applicant Primrose Development LLC in this matter.
Thank you, and good evening, Attorney Thomas.
Good evening, everybody.
Go ahead and,
Yes, first thing I would like to state is that the notices and the pictures of the sign posting were submitted electronically twice because, as I often say to people, when they ask me, why do I post the property myself? It's because when there's a mistake, I know who to blame. So I can blame myself for writing 7 o'clock on the initial one and then changing it to 6 o'clock myself. So I actually resent out all the notices to everybody by certificate of mailing that it was a 6 o'clock Zoom, although if nobody got it, it's almost 7 o'clock anyway. So the notices did go out. This is a special exception under your Riverfront District zone. Interestingly enough, your Riverfront District zone is a relatively small zone in the downtown area, and this complies with the standards that you, pretty much complies with the standards that you have in there. But I do want to make one comment at the beginning. In addition, simultaneously with or prior to the filing of this application with Planning and Zoning, a wetlands application had to be filed. As you can see, if the site plan, Alex, do you want me to screen share or do you want to screen share?
If you're comfortable with it, you may.
I think I may be comfortable with it. We'll find out soon enough.
Okay.
Okay.
while that's happening, I just want to note for the record, this application was accepted for review on June 8th, 2021. Public hearing was scheduled at that meeting for today. And the site plans for this application were posted to the city's website. They're the group that is under the heading of added May 2021, with the exception of the plan page that would be identified as A2.
So can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. Because my computer is telling me I am muted, so I guess I'm not. I put up the site plan, and right in this location here, I'll try to blow it up for you a little bit, is our infamous burying ground brook.
That is not showing on the screen, Attorney Thomas. We've got your computer file folders up on the screen.
Okay. Stop share. Let me try it again. Does it show up now?
It says it started screen sharing. There it is. Okay.
Do we have it up now? Okay, fine. This is the site plan. And this area here, you see my cursor running along here, is burying ground brook. This area here is the existing culvert that the city put in apparently when it did some work. And this area is open area, which my client is going to have to culvert. In addition to that, there are issues relating to the existing culvert. As a result, an application had to be filed with the Shelton Wetlands Commission. It was filed prior to the filing of this application in early June. And as of yet, the Shelton Wetlands Commission hasn't scheduled a meeting at all. So I just want to say that obviously the public hearing needs to be kept open because we have no idea what the comments are going to be. We pretty much understand what needs to be done and what needs to be addressed, but certainly we would need comments from the Wetlands Commission. The proposal is for let me just get to the right. As you can see on the piece of property, this is the survey of the piece of property that it encompasses, and it is off of what we call Canal Street East. It is across the railroad tracks from the building that you just had an application on. The proposal, as it's stated in my statement of use, is for 92 apartments on the site, and I'm assuming you each have the statement of use, which was.
No, we don't. We do not have a statement of use.
It was submitted electronically with multiple copies, so you don't have paper copies or electronically?
No.
Okay.
Good. You have something.
No, all we have are the plans.
Oops. Okay, so let me just do this for you so that we can go over it. Let's see if I can get this to work. Okay, can you see the statement of use on the screen now?
No, we just have that list on your computer.
Okay. Can you see it now?
It's, there it is. Okay.
Okay, all right, fine. So the statement of use that was submitted, the property is the special exception, how it's identified, 92 studio 1 and 2 and 3-bedroom apartments, 11,000 square feet, a flex space for retail, commercial, or office or food service. The uses are permitted in the RFD zone with the requirement for a special exception application. The property abuts the Shelton Riverwalk. It's a former brownfield site, and pursuant to it, it also requires the client to extend the Riverwalk. And when we get to the engineer and the client, they will explain to you more of the details. There's a explanation of the size of the site, and the property has frontage on Canal Street greater than the required any linear feet, and also riverfront frontage along the Riverwalk and city-owned property. The property is currently owned by the city of Shelton and is in contract with the developer. There are 92 studio 1 and 2 and 3-bedroom apartments in the 11,000 space. 179 on-site parking spaces will be provided. I'm going to stop here for a moment. There is some, you have, and I listened to your prior presentation. So I just want to say you have in the Riverfront District for some reason, and somewhat inordinately high parking requirement of 2 per unit, which is substantially higher than in most situations. And in most situations, the lower numbers have proven to be more than effective, but you have a requirement of 2. There is the ability to get a little flexible on site, and there is some ability for the commission to look into other issues, but there's no need to provide under the requirement if the commission determines that there's no really need to provide parking for the 11,000 square feet because it's within the downtown and it's within reasonable distance of municipal parking. The 179 spaces are dedicated to the apartments, which is basically, if you do the math, obviously, I think 5 short of what would be required, but still it's a substantial amount of parking spaces to be provided. The Riverwalk will be extended from its terminus at Veterans Park to Canal Street East, and of course it's served by all necessary utilities. So that's the preliminary for this site. There is no, the only off-site parking, so to speak, or public parking would be for the commercial facilities. And certainly there can be a discussion as to whether or not a portion of that, because I really think 179 spaces is quite a bit, can be dedicated to some of the commercial space, because it is pretty well standard that in apartments, while people can work different shifts, that the peak of parking in residential apartment buildings, and you've had this submitted before you in other applications, is from 10 a.m., 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. is the peak of when residential parking lots are full.
Okay.
So with that, let me see if Don.
Mr. Attorney Thomas, and for the rest of the commission, and Mr. Getz, I just wanted to ask if you can verify the mix of units from the plans I saw on floors 2, 3, 4, and 5. The layout is the same, and it totals 24 studios, 6 on a floor, 21 bedrooms, 5 on a floor, 44 2-bedrooms, 11 on a floor, and 4 3-bedrooms, 1 on each floor. So adds up to 92, and I'm assuming that that's the way the
Right.
breaks down.
I was going to get to that once we got through the site plan issues. That's on the plans. That's stated on A6, and it breaks it down. But and I'm going to have to ask, because I'm looking at my rectangles. Mr. Geddes, is there someone here from the engineering firm to take over and explain the site work and everything?
I had asked.
He's here, he's coming in,
Associates.
he's coming in.
He's coming in. Okay.
Your computer screen is up, Attorney Thomas, on the screen.
It's not this. It's not the site plan.
No,
Uh,
try again.
Madam Chair,
Yes, go ahead, Commissioner Kelly.
just for the record, today I did take off the statement of use and special application. That was on the internet from the Planning and Zoning Department
When was it posted?
today.
Okay, because I checked about 3 o'clock and I didn't see it.
No, I think it was after that.
Okay. All right, who are we waiting for?
This is,
Mr. Edwards, okay.
Mr. Edwards is here, so.
All right, Mr.
Okay.
Edwards, why don't you identify yourself and your affiliation with the project for the record, please?
Okay, my name is Larry Edwards, professional engineer with offices, with J. Edwards and Associates with offices 279 or 227 Richard or Stepney Road in Easton. We are the site engineers for the project.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
And if we can get back to the site drawing, I think it would be helpful. You just have it.
Got it.
There you go.
okay.
Okay, basically, we have looked at the site layout in terms of parking and so forth outside the building, but a large majority of the parking is in fact in the building, which is covered on the architectural drawings, not our drawings. But basically, the site has access in 2 locations. One to the south end of the property, which will provide access to outside parking along the southern border, and then entrance into a lower level parking garage, which will, and again, I don't have those numbers specifically in front of me, but there's underground parking on the lower level. And then the second entrance will come in from on the northerly end of the site. And that access will have a small amount of outside parking, but there will be another parking deck that it'll be open, but that will likewise provide parking to the facility. So in total, I think it was said that there was 179 spaces. We also did the storm drainage for the site, and that is included on the plans. We basically have the drainage system along the lower perimeter of the property, and that will discharge into what will be the new conduit over the existing water course that flows through the site. So that portion that is under the building will have to be expanded and constructed in order to pass the flow under the building. And then there is an existing, that flows back into an existing conduit system that flows out to the Houstonic River. We really haven't done any significant design on this yet. That's going to be all under the jurisdiction of DEEP, and they generally don't want to see us until we have a project that has been approved by the local authorities. So once we have approval, and I'm sure it will be a condition of your approval that that we obtain the DEEP permits necessary to construct and close the open section of the water course. We have included a an erosion control plan, but the other major part of, I think, the site plan is the extension of the walkway, which will be extended from Canal Street along the riverside, and then tie into the existing walkway on connected as part of the Veterans Park site. So that will be follow the same construction technique in terms of the walkway, and it'll all be handicap compliant, and that will allow for our particular site to tie into it, and also for the public to enter on Canal Street and can extend through Veterans Park.
Can I just ask you, Mr. Edwards, what is the rectangular piece that hits the Riverwalk right there? Up a little and to the left. What is that?
I think that's
That's the culvert.
It's part of the culvert. Okay.
yeah, okay, that's, you're right, that's the open part of the culvert.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, basically, we have all the other required information in the site plan set, the erosion controls. We didn't do any storm detention on this site because of its proximity to the river, would be detrimental to retain this, the stormwater on site. It's better to get it out of the site and into the river and downriver before the peak comes from the upper end of the Houstonic River. So that's standard, I think, probably in all the sites along Canal Street. And that's basically it. Our work was relatively straightforward. I think the issues in terms of the building and the parking, I'll leave for John to discuss.
Okay, so I think we can get into the building now and the floor plans to show you the parking and how it's developed. John, do you want to take over the architectural portion?
Okay. Again, for the commission, I'm John Getz. I'm president of Primrose Companies. This particular site is a collaboration with, in partnership with Biagio Barone. So it's Getz and Barone that are the developers. This property is city-owned. The history of it is that there were multiple factories on the site. I believe there was a total of 4 factories. And it went through city taking it and through brownfields program, demolishing the buildings and doing mitigation on site. The reason we have as large as we have as an open culvert is that a portion or a major portion of it, there was a building over it. But the site was mitigated, and then the mayor received authorization to negotiate the sale of it, and Biagio and Getz negotiated the purchase of the property. And looking at it, because of the existing topography and also the requirements under the mitigation program, This site happened to work out ideally to do to utilize the existing topography to work to create a 2-deck parking structure, and then, the building above it. The building was designed with, and again, I don't have the access to the drawings here, but in your packet, you'll see that
Which
there's,
page do you want me to pull up?
well, it was just a rendering.
Okay, the
show-
rendering?
Yeah, to show the, I don't know if you have it there, but basically that's it. Again, the design was to introduce as much brick as possible to go in keeping with the other buildings that are being constructed. And as you can see, what we have at street level is commercial space, which is approximately 11,000 square feet. The access to the lower garage is part of the open parking on the right side of the building, which the driveway was set up specifically across the street from the Canal Street West, so that it's part of the intersection, and basically it has access to the lower parking deck. And Dominic, if you can show the lower floor plan on the architecturals, you'll see that I think is it this one or the next one?
That's street level.
This is street level.
Get me to the lower level, which is the next drawing. Or is it, oh, you're missing A2. Oh,
Yeah,
there you go. No, you just had it, Dominic.
I just had it.
Yeah. There you go. So if you look at this lower level, it's a parking, again, on the right side is open parking, and you drive down towards the river, and you enter the garage on the left side. And as you enter, you have the parking facilities. You also have areas for self-storage units and bike racks. So that again, I think that, I don't know, I'm assuming that the commission now is aware of it. The public may not be, but as part of the bridge beautification on the Derby Shelton Bridge, the state has as part of that, they've included the section of Bridge Street that was closed down once the Riverside Drive was created and opened up. And part of that is a bicycle path. It's a pedestrian parkway or walkway, but also a bicycle trail. So as part of this program, I've included areas for bicycle racks, self-storage, parking, and again, this is below street level, and basically it brings us to the level of the Riverwalk. As part of the program and as part of the early meetings that I had on the tech review, the building was redesigned to meet the requirement to keep it at least 20, I believe it's 28 feet from the Riverwalk. And as part of the agreement with the city, we've agreed that not only would we provide the Riverwalk easement, but we would also construct the Riverwalk. So that once this building is completed, basically the Riverwalk will also be completed, meaning the extension from Veterans Park, heading along the river, along the railroad track, and exiting onto Canal Street East. On the second level, as you see from Dominic just had it, basically you have different entrance on the north side of the building that brings you to the upper deck. And there's open space, but at the same time, there's also covered space. And the parking would be behind the building. The first level of occupiable level will be at street level. Right now, as you know, if you go there, the grade is about 20 feet below the road. So this here will, similar to the Roll Fight site or the Riverside Center, this will, it will be at street level. The only difference here is that instead of building a retaining wall in the back, we're working with the grades, with the Riverwalk, so that we were able to get multi-level, parking on it. And then the upper floors are the proposed, apartments, which is an L-shaped building, and with 2 elevators. And basically, we originally had the makeup, the initial design was with more, 2 and 2 bedroom units. And we decided that to introduce, more, the additional factor of studio apartments. And that's where, the difference came in. And again, the studio apartments tend to require less parking because, again, generally most studio apartments are leased by individuals, single, persons. So, we had a design change. But for the most part, again, I had tried on this one here, I try to provide what I believe was adequate parking for it. As you know, the more units you have, the less parking requirements exist. You have a combination of, in a situation like 92, if you have a 10% vacancy factor, at any given time, you basically wind up with, anywhere from 5 to 9 apartments, being turned over. And therefore, the maximum amount of parking is generally not required. But unlike others, again, this one here, I was able to, through the double deck program, I was able to reach almost a 2-to-1 ratio on the parking. So, that's basically where we are with it.
Mr. Getz, I noticed on some of your elevations, it looks like are those Juliet balconies on the exterior?
Yeah, those they don't extend out. The railings are flush. And again, that's basically to provide balcony views without actually having balconies.
Do you have any concerns? We had some concern expressed by someone in the area that their design on the exterior was going to change and they were eliminating the Juliet balconies. They were a little concerned about safety and egress from the building in case of an emergency.
No, I don't see that as an issue. I mean, for the most part, the railings are 42 inches high. This is pretty common nowadays. We try to, it used to be that most buildings similar to the Avalon complex were providing balconies, but with time they began to realize that as far as rentals, it became more and more of a hazard. People began to use the balcony areas for putting out a grill or or storage, and it became more of a nuisance than anything else. People were just not utilizing them for the purpose. So here, basically, I wanted to provide the concept of a balcony where you have the sliders where people can open it, or they've got the river breeze or and the river views, and not so I don't see it as an issue. And keep in mind that these buildings now, this one here will, the sprinkler system on it, because of the mixed use, it'll have to be the standard NFPA 13, not the residential system. So the building is fully sprinkled. It's, and as I said, I don't see it as I don't know why anyone would consider it to be a safety issue.
Yeah, that was a concern that was expressed to us through staff.
Yeah, I've never heard that, but
Yeah, it's there. Now, for instance, on A8 sheet, I just happened to turn to that. It's the 4th floor, but you have 2 elevators shown in the front of the building. That's the only place that your elevators are located.
yeah, they're basically centrally located because you have some, the lake to the left and the lake that goes to the east are almost the same, distance.
And how are you proposing the trash removal? Is there an interior chute?
No, we have the interior chutes. All the buildings now that I designed,
Mhm.
I introduced the interior chutes and the trash compactor at the lowest level.
Okay, that's centrally located. This is too small for me to pick out.
Yeah, I believe that in this one, I provided 2 locations for it. One at the east side and one at the north side.
Mhm. And that goes all the way down to the basement level?
That's correct.
So I'm assuming that this is engineered so that whatever trash removal service that you have will be able to enter that particular space.
Yeah, it's fairly common now in these type of buildings.
Mhm.
When you think about, as an example, the Birmingham, even though the Birmingham, unfortunately, there was always, very limited land because the building was basically built on the lines. But, people, in the Birmingham, they have to bring their trash down down to the elevator and across the street into the containers. Well, here, the convenience is that all they have to do is go down the hall and put it in the chute and, and that's it. So it's not only a convenience for the tenants, but it's also, a maintenance issue, maintenance relief for the building.
Okay. $64,000 question is, are you going to dedicate 10% of these for affordable housing?
We weren't planning on it, but I don't think that's I think that's something that we would sit down with, with staff and see what we could work out.
Okay, thank you for that. Anything else you'd like to share with us, Mr. Getz?
No, look, it's, again, I know that as we discussed before, we're looking for appropriate development in downtown. We know that the biggest issues it's the same issues that we had 18 years ago when I started on Canal Street, and they continue, and that is that, that there's limited land, and yet, in order to do anything, you have to maximize the space that you have. So, in this particular case, the site allowed for the type of development that's being proposed. It allowed for the multiple deck parking, the ability to access one side for the underground parking and another side for the surface or the street level parking. Unlike the Avalon situation, any of these developments, we're not asking people to pay extra. I mean, they're signing a lease to rent a apartment, and the parking comes with it. So in this particular case, that's the same thing. One of the things that I should note is that, and Dominic, if you would go to the street level, I believe that's right there. No, you just missed it. It's the one that you just had.
Yeah, this is first one.
That one right there. Basically, there's, this has been set up so that you do have the ability to lease commercial space. There is, the center of the building, you'll see where the elevator lobby is and the main stair, there is a meeting room there. They're also being provided with toilet facilities for, the building, and whether it's limited parties or, we still haven't decided, whether it's going to be an exercise room or what have you. So that the rest of the space right now, we do not know the type of users that would be going in there. But as stated, this year, the consideration was that we weren't just going to put up a building, but we were going to put up an apartment building that also had, some commercial space to it. And as Commissioner Parkins has stated previously, this is also what I believe is appropriate for any development in the downtown, and that is you're bringing people in, but at the same time, you're providing space so that the people, the professionals that will service these new residents is also being provided. So I think this is the type of building that I would like to continue to see develop in the downtown.
Mhm. Okay, anything else? Attorney
Now we have
Thomas?
to figure out where we're gonna go. Now we have to figure out where we're gonna go.
Attorney Thomas?
I'm getting
Well,
some feedback from
Yeah, Stephanie,
somebody.
please put your on mute. Thank you.
Sorry.
Okay, that's okay. All right, Attorney Thomas, do you have anything?
Yes, I just wanted, before we, again, I've explained to you about the wetlands application, and the engineer mentioned the fact that we may very well, more than likely, have to also go to deep. You're familiar, for those of you that were around for the Coram Avenue and Center Street project, you'll understand the issues. The one thing I wanted to, I'll conclude pointing out something from a zoning perspective. When you're talking about the economics, you have a very small riverfront district. You require special exception, which gives you some discretion. But one thing that you really, when you're looking at this site, and I know you're all familiar with it, one thing you have to take into account, that the development of this site requires a substantial amount of expense on the site plan aspect of it. This is a site that had to be remediated, as a result of which, granted, Mr. Geddes has managed to take advantage of the elevation changes and everything like that. But with the culvert issue, with other issues, it requires a substantial amount of site work. And as you all know, my answer when people point out all the developer wants to do is make money is to say you're absolutely correct. The developers do want to make money. They do need to make money, and they need to have plans which are sufficiently economically viable to do the site plan. And I think given the small amount, even though it is a special exception, given the small amount of riverfront space you have, and this being the largest riverfront district space, I think it's something that you have to keep in mind. And finally, and we have to abide by the zoning regulations. And you have 2 spaces for each unit. But I just did a little while the presentation was being made. I just want you to know that if you, and I'm one of those people who totally disagrees with the fact that everybody's going to go out and buy 2 cars and be driving 2 cars and everything like that. I don't think there's any statistical evidence that has proven that and proven that there's been parking issues. And I know there are parking problems in a lot of towns. My philosophy is with downtowns is you need 2 things. You need a parking problem and a traffic problem. If you have both of those, then you have the kind of people in downtown that you want. But if you took the 4 3-bedrooms and added 2 cars for each of those, the 2 bedrooms and added 2 cars for each of those, the 1 bedrooms and added 1.5 cars for each of those, and the studios and added 1 car for each of those, which is probably greater. You come out with a number of 154. Your requirement is 2. We're providing 179. So I don't think parking on site should be an issue. And with that, I turn it over to the commission for any questions or the public for any comments.
Well, just continuing along that parking, that's for the residential portion. What
Right.
about for anybody coming to the, and patronizing the commercial on the first floor?
Well, the fact of the matter is you have indoor parking in your regulation, and I'm going to, I don't know if I can pull this up. I had the regulation up on my screen before, but in your regulations, in your parking regulations for the Riverfront District, you have the ability to address the issues of commercial. When you're having downtown commercial, if you want everybody to start providing on-site for all commercial traffic, when you have all this public parking and all this street parking downtown, in my opinion, frankly, you're just shooting yourself in the foot, because now you're requiring a developer to remove some of his development and therefore reduce the economic viability in order to get parking on site. I mean, the possibility exists is if you had a reasonable parking requirement, I suppose some of the parking at the ground level could be dedicated for the retail space, but because I think you're overparked residentially. But if not, those people that are going to the retail, restaurant, whatever it is down there, have a very short walk from the public parking, from two public parking lots. The public parking lot behind the farmer's market, the public parking lot over on the other side of Bridge Street. Honestly, it's not that far of a walk from the public parking lot. It's even over by the post office and the other public parking lot that I think is somewhere over across from the Conti building on Howe. So there is plenty of public parking. When I did a draft on another site for downtown, I stuck a pin in the site and went out 600 feet. And there is an enormous amount of spaces within 600 feet.
Mhm.
And
I just want to make sure I'm interpreting A5 correctly. Right smack in the middle where it says parking 69 spaces, right below it, there are lines for 17 spaces. Between those two hash mark kind of sections, to the right of the number 17, there's a doorway and that leads into the lobby. So there is access from the first floor parking level into the lobby. So somebody could park back there potentially and walk through that door and come out to the street and then head left or right to whatever commercial establishment they might want to go to. Is that correct?
I suppose they could, and I suppose they could, directing people who are going to the commercial establishments to go there. I mean, my point is, I think your parking regulations require to look at the situation with respect to it, but both the employees and the customers for this have plenty of public parking in the vicinity.
Okay. Something that we've asked recently of applicants, are you providing any car charging stations in the parking garage?
No, the parking will all be at no charge.
No, not a charge. It's the electric car charging.
Oh, yeah, there's provisions being made for that.
Okay,
There'll
so
be one
nothing,
at each level.
okay, they're not anything indicated on the plans, but that is something that you would.
That'll be dealt with at the final detail plans.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, anything else, Mr. Attorney Thomas, Mr. Getz?
No, not for
Okay.
me at this point. Again, the commission with the wetlands matter, the matter has to be kept open anyway, so.
Exactly, yeah, I'm not moving that far yet, to that point, part of my script, but, so we'll get something from the fire marshal and we will get something from the city engineer on this particular proposal.
Well, we haven't received anything. I don't know if they've done, we submitted the plans a month and a half ago, but we haven't received anything yet.
Okay, so Mr. Rossetti, you'd be following up on that, I would believe.
Yep.
Okay, very good. So, do any commissioners have any questions for the applicant?
Madam Chair, I do.
Go ahead, Commissioner Parkins.
Are there laundry facilities within these apartments, or do you have a laundry room for tenants? I
No.
didn't see any.
No, and all of the apartments that I develop, I introduce the stack units at every apartment with the exception of the handicap units where they get side by side, but all laundry facilities are in each apartment.
Okay. Another question I have is on the elevator structures. Is there any way to put them on the stair wall instead of against the unit wall? I don't imagine that would be too desirable a unit to have an elevator next on the other side of your wall. Just a thought.
Yeah, we
You may
have
have
them,
to severely discount that apartment.
well, no, I mean, we didn't discount the Birmingham and yet they're on an apartment
Wow,
wall.
that's
But,
when you move into the
keep in
Birmingham, you
mind,
move
these-
into an
these
industrial building.
The elevator shafts are masonry all the way to the top, 12-inch blocks, fill solid. And then they get an additional wall on the inside, insulated.
Okay,
So there's an insulating factor on it. I mean, for the most part, you have the two elevators. One is designed to be a stretcher accommodating elevator in case of an emergency.
Mhm.
So you have and then obviously if one goes down, you always have the second one. We've had situations where we've put the elevators, such as in 223 Canal, we have one in the front and one in the rear. The only problem that I had in designing this here is that I see this location, people, the tenants having more and more access or having better access to the park and to the trail and everything else. So I see more activity at that front, and that's where I felt the convenience to access the elevators would be needed. So again, the location of it, I don't think it's, I've never found it to be an issue because of the way that the shafts are constructed.
Mhm. Okay, any other Commissioner Parkins, is that it?
that's it for now, yeah.
Okay, any other commissioner have any comments, questions or concerns for the applicant?
A question about the parking. I get the logic of you're saying that 179 spaces would be enough, given that some of them are studio apartments and so forth. But I'm just curious as to how you expect to designate those so that, again, with the question of the commercial usage, that there won't be competition for the apartment dwellers, so that they actually have places that they have the parking places that they expect to have.
Well, Commissioner Mato, the fact is that, and this is where many of the communities or municipalities throughout the state, where they introduce or they accept the shared parking. And the reason being that most of the businesses, not all of them, but many of the businesses are daytime, and apartments in many cases are nighttime. But in this particular case, as I stated before, when I initially designed the building, I was heavy on 2-bedroom units. And then I redesigned to introduce the studio apartments. And again, I had the similar, I did the similar analysis that Attorney Thomas did during the time that he was off of Zoom. And that was that, I felt that for the facility, that for the number of units, that 150 parking spaces were going to be adequate for it. That the additional or the number of parking spaces above that would be utilized for the commercial space. Now, so that you understand, all developers that develop apartment buildings, they will always assign one space to each apartment. And then the second or anything above that is not assigned, and it's free flowing. But there are no, at least that I'm aware of, there are no apartment complexes that have been developed or are being developed that provide more than one assigned parking space.
Okay, so of the 179, then is it 92 units? I forget. So
92 units.
yeah, so there would be 92 spaces for the tenants and the rest would be for the commercial use. Unless people are paying extra for a second space.
There's no extra charge for any
So
space.
okay, so they're
It's
just,
just not,
it's not assigned.
they're just
Okay,
not assigned.
okay. All right.
So
I
that
understand.
if somebody, comes late or whatever, he has to find, someone will always have an assigned parking space.
Okay, so whether it's a 1 bedroom or a 2 bedroom or a studio, they would each have
They will
one.
each have one assigned parking space.
And one thing that I think can be pointed out, I just pulled up the, what's labeled as the basement garage floor plan, but the parking on the right is at street level. Am I correct, John?
Yes, that's along
Yeah,
the
the
park.
parking on the right's on street level. I mean, I don't, in commercials, if you start trying to say, if you have commercial space, you got to provide on-site spaces for all the customer. I think it's.
Oh, I'm not saying that at all.
It's not.
I'm actually more concerned about the tenants having
Right,
places.
yeah,
Yeah,
and the tenants, but I mean, given the amount of parking that's on here, if you look at the road that says 23, I would suspect if there was a nice little boutique or something in there, or as Commissioner Parkin said, a nice butcher shop, or something of that nature, those spaces would most likely not be dedicated, because I assume the 92 spaces, most of them are going to be interior spaces, which are more desirable. Am I correct, John, for the tenants?
Yeah, they would be
Yeah.
covered, they would be covered parking.
Covered. So you have spaces outside that would be available during the day. And like I said, the reports that you have been submitted, the 12-year, Barkin and Mess, now Loner McBroom, now SLR, that group that did the study, the parking for apartments is at its peak from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. And so I don't think there'll be many businesses open for that period of time. So in fact, what you do have with the system that's set up is you have some exterior parking right there along where it says 23, that if people wanted to park on site, they could, to do a little shopping. But they also have an abundance of public parking.
If I can just ask, how are you going to control to make sure that it's not used as public parking per se? Do you issue parking tags or that sort of thing? Like if a car doesn't have a tag on it, then they can get towed?
Well, Ruth, the unfortunate thing in the downtown, it's a difficult thing to control. People will do what's most convenient for them, with disregard to what's appropriate. Every single tenant that's within, like the situation with SpongeX or the Birmingham, each one of them has a tag on their vehicle that shows what their address and what their unit number is. As we've been trying to enforce the parking at SpongeX, because as I said, we have issues. I mean, we have now a person that we pay to sort of control the parking situation. And when he finds someone that, doesn't belong there, he advises them that the individual that they're parking illegally, that they must move their vehicle. And the reason being is that forever and ever, we would find that that the parking lot there was full, and yet the cars were registered to people that lived in other locations other than, that location. So, and, the whole thing, when I went through this whole process of designing this building, I took a lot of things into consideration, and, such as why aren't people using the parking lot behind Farmers Market? And I realized that, that as the downtown evolves, there's still, sort of a hesitation, and there's still sort of a fear, especially for women that, that may work the night shift or may come home late, they want to be next to the building. And so what we're trying to do here is, yes, make sure that we have adequate parking for the residents of this building. And therefore, there were two things that I wanted to make sure I had. One was the combination of type of housing that is right now demand. I wanted to have some housing that would attract the young professionals, possibly single young professional people. But at the same time, I also wanted some, young family, young couples. And so that's how we arrived at the mixture, but I took into consideration the number of parking spaces that would be needed. And as I said, Dominic Thomas just confirmed it, that 150 parking spaces for this facility are more than adequate. We have 179, which means that the parking, and again, Dominic Thomas alluded to that, but the parking that is outdoors along the right side of the building, that was meant to accommodate the commercial space. And as far as, how do we police it? It's something that we'll have to deal with when the time comes. But right now, again, we have, the spaces are going to be numbered and they're going to be dedicated, one space per tenant. There will, and the rest will be floating. And hopefully as more buildings get developed, they will take similar design programs that will, give thought to this as well. And hopefully eventually we will have a municipal parking garage in the downtown to be able to accommodate a lot of the, the lack of parking.
Mr. Getz, your entrance to the basement parking is on the right side. And
Yes.
correct, and your first floor parking is on the left side. Had you considered a gate kind of system?
Well, it's, again, there is a gate on the lower parking garage, the bottom of the driveway. If you look at the right side on this drawing A4, you see the open parking on the right. At the end of it, there's the entrance to the parking garage, and that's meant to be a controlled garage entry.
Okay.
So that those I forget the number of parking spaces, 110. All of those are meant to accommodate the assigned parking for the tenants.
Okay, and on the other drawing for the first floor?
Those are the floating parking spaces. And
Yeah.
there the entrance is on the left side.
Yeah.
At grade.
Right, so there's no access, no gate system on the left side.
No, and again, I wanted to provide the security,
Yep.
the security component for the tenants, on the lower level.
Okay,
I do want to just briefly respond to one of Commissioner Parkins's. And John, in another, I've run into this in other communities. One way of doing the enforcement in a place like this is to issue, as John has said, he issues parking passes. But I've seen areas where, whether it's street parking for something or whether it's on-site parking, that there is a thing that states clearly, and you could do this with the 23 spaces even, that parking by permit between 10 p.m., depending on who your commercial thing is, between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. Or 10 p.m. and even 5 a.m. By doing that, you make it a little bit easier for people to enforce the parking regulations, at least, and somebody using it as an overnight public parking, which would be a problem. The other thing that John's going to have to be concerned about and everything is people that use the Riverwalk and want to try to park there. But, again, that's a matter of enforcement.
yep. Okay. So anything further, Attorney Thomas or Mr. Getz?
No, we're
Commissioner
responding to the commission members.
Okay, and Commissioner Kelly? did you
Yeah,
want to say
I'm
something?
just curious. On the trash, emptying the trash, I know there are going to be trash chutes going to a compactor on both sides. Where in the drawings are going to be located, and how are they going to be either inside or outside, and how they're going to be taken out? Is that,
There, Commissioner, if you look at this drawing that's on the screen,
yeah,
you'll see that as an example, the rear of the building, the stairwell,
yeah,
right next to the stairwell, there's that space. You see it?
yep,
That's basically where your trash compactor will be located, on the rear of the building.
okay,
And
but
if you
how do
go,
you, how do you empty, how do you get it out of there?
they actually wheel them out. They're
Oh, they do?
small. They're small. They're almost like the size of a pickup truck, and which has mechanisms whereby they wheel them out and they lift the
Oh.
compacted.
Basically, you're
cubes.
going to have to be almost empty daily then, no?
Well, they have a system, but this is common. This is not new. They, based on the amount of trash, but keep in mind, it's not bulk trash. It goes through, a compactor.
Yeah, I
And
know.
it's crushed, and there are two chutes. One chute is for household trash and the other chute is for recycles.
Right, right.
But you have one at that location, and if Dominic, puts the drawing back to full view, and he goes to the left side of the building, there's another, Dominic, it's right to the left side, adjacent to that
We're going
stairwell.
to stairwell again?
Yeah, next to the stairwell again, you'll see that there's an overhead door
Yep.
there.
yep,
You see
I
the
see
two
that, right.
circles, which
Yep.
represent the two chutes. And right there. And again, it's the same thing. It's brought down and it's, carted away.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. Could sheet A11 be put up, please? It shows the front and rear elevation. Okay, can you enlarge that?
Top or bottom?
The bottom. Okay, all right. That looks like it's on the roof. Just drop it a little bit, Attorney Thomas, if you wouldn't mind. It says vinyl coated railing and cement board siding. Is that a little outdoor patio or
No,
what is that?
that's basically for all of the condensers.
Oh, interesting. All right, only because, that's the view facing the water, and I was thinking, geez, an outdoor upstairs kind of deck or
Well,
something.
we've done on a number of buildings, the so-called rooftop views, but if you look at, every single unit has that faces the river has the French doors.
Mhm.
So, they have views. The
Yeah,
problem
I
with
know that.
providing,
It's just, was there something exterior?
Yeah,
since
no,
there'll be
that's strictly
something
for the
on the
equipment.
Renaissance.
it's both that's view and the other, I set them up in a way that they're not viewed from, the major views of the building.
I think you can see that on A10 better.
Well, you can also see it on the roof plan.
Yeah, right, on A10.
Yeah. But the observation decks are fine, but then you need to have an ability to control it.
Mhm.
And, it's just too much of an issue to deal with. But if you can see this, you have the stairwell going up, and then there's access to the stairwell in the front by the elevators. Access is a corridor that provides access to those two locations, and those two locations wind up having all of the equipment for the buildings,
Mhm. All
for the
right.
building.
All right, so we're not going to have any rooftop kind of activity other than for maintenance. Okay.
Well, I mean, basically, these are flat areas that are carved into the roof system.
Mhm. Okay.
What's your source of heat, John? Is
They're
it
going to
natural
be the
gas?
high efficiency, well, obviously but basically it'll be heat pumps.
Okay, so it's all electric.
Yeah, the new, we're actually, I don't know if you're familiar with it, but both Panasonic and Mitsubishi now have, the high efficiency heat pumps. They're more efficient than the gas furnaces. And the thing with them was we don't have, all of these vents outside the walls.
Right.
There's reasons why, again, my biggest concern was energy, associated with it. But after I went through all of the literature on these units, they make units that are either one head, two head, double head, or three heads. They're made specifically for these type of apartments. But there's even more rebates on them now than there are on the furnaces.
Yeah, well, there's a push for electrification, so.
Right.
On
But in this particular case, it's also an aesthetic thing, because again, as the more furnaces you have, the more, penetrations through the walls you have. So in this case, we eliminate all of those.
Mr. Getz, can you comment for the rest of the commission, your exterior treatment plans A11 and page A12 all talk about the vinyl shake siding and
The vinyl shake is limited.
brick veneer.
Yeah, the vinyl shake is limited to some accent areas, but mostly it's the cement fiber board siding, and the brick veneer as you see it. There's details. I mean, if you look at the rendering shows it more, but I created a lot of brick details on this, on this design, especially on the front. We have some canopies, over the main entrances. And those canopies are standing seam, metal, just to sort of deviate from, the brick and siding. There were some treatments also that I included on the roof gate, the roof projections, also with some standing seam. Again, that was just to provide some accents. And then wherever we have, any kind of, boarding, trim, it's all AZEK trim. Again, trying to make the building as maintenance free as possible.
Okay. All right, any commissioners have any comments, questions of the applicant?
Madam Chair,
Go ahead, and Commissioner Laskos.
on that same sheet 811, what is the building height? It seems to point to the center of the roof line on the right-hand side.
Well, generally, that's most municipalities. When you have pitched roofs, they view the height to the middle of the roof. But if again, if we obviously the rear is higher because of the double deck parking, but
It's 61.61 feet, 1 5/8 inch is the number that's there.
well, that's mid roof, and again, you're probably talking 70 feet to the bridge.
To the peak.
Yeah.
And this is for staff. How is that addressed?
I'm sorry.
Or, a question now for staff on the height.
I don't remember the roof standards or the maximum height restrictions for the RFD zone off the top of my head, but we will double check that. And there are a couple of things we'd like to follow up with on the applicant on, but
Yeah,
thanks for that.
I can, if you hold
Okay.
on 1 second, I can answer one question possibly. Let me just, on my own screen, I don't think can you see it? I don't know if you can see what I just pulled up.
Yes, we can.
Huh?
Yeah, it's there.
You can? Okay. It's 60 feet with an asterisk.
Yes.
And the asterisk says refer to paragraph 24.3 concerning excess height. And I'm not sure that 24.3, I think, is a it's not a regulation directly related to the RFD, but I think it says, it talks about average measurements and it excludes certain things such as parapets. But Mr. Panico may be able to refresh me on that, but I think it excludes parapets and other roof treatments.
So
I have it here.
All right, go ahead, Jenny.
Yeah, 24.3 says height, no building or other structure shall exceed the number of stories and or the maximum height, whichever is less as specified in Schedule B. It says in an OPT district, the commission may permit a greater height. And within the riverfront district, this is the last sentence, the commission may permit a greater height for a portion of a building totaling not more than 50% of the building roof area, but not exceeding 75 feet in height to accommodate penthouses and similar rooftop features. Okay, so we have a little discretion there.
Okay, thank you.
Very good. Any other commissioners?
Madam Chair, I have one question about the parking.
Yourself?
Will there be electric vehicle charging stations, especially since electric vehicles will become more prevalent as we move forward into the future?
Yeah, I think this was asked prior, and I stated that in the final detailed plans, there will be stations located on the street level and the garage level. We just have to, again, it's a matter of trying to position them in a way that, because obviously that would be a parking space that would have to be dedicated for the purpose of charging.
Mhm. Okay.
Thank you.
All right, final call before we check to see if anybody from the public wants to comment. Any final comments from the commission? Questions? Okay, Mr. Rossetti, are there any members of the public who have been waiting to address the commission on this application?
There are not, we've scared them all off. And for the record, Commissioner Ticky did have to leave.
Okay. And how long ago was that?
About 10 minutes ago.
Okay. All right, so no public comments. Any
Well,
other?
that's a good sign.
Yeah, for sure.
Now it is. Okay, so any further questions?
So there are just two comments I'll follow up with John on, or three. Staff will follow up with them on, just see if there's anything in terms of parking we can clarify for the commission. We'll double check the heights and kind of go through the dot our i's and cross our t's. We'll discuss the affordable housing aspect of it. And I know the zoning subcommittee would likely bring this up. Any plans to include solar or other means of green efficiency for building design, or generating your own electricity on site, whether however you want to slice and dice it, and we can discuss that amongst ourselves, and then you can report back to the commission at a later time, John.
Well, that's fine. I mean, look, it's, the biggest problem we have with solar is that, the certain buildings, in this particular case, the design of this building, the introduction of solar panels is an aesthetic issue as well. So if we were to do, look, I have a project, right now solar is, I have a project where the solar program that I'm intending to install is costing $400,000, except that the government is kicking in $353,000. So it's costing $47,000. It's there is, but again, the building that I'm introducing it in has parapets and a flat roof, and it can be done in a way that aesthetically, nobody sees them. In this particular building, the only areas that would be, if that was to be entertained, it would have to be in the back of the building, and then, the aesthetics of it would have to be looked at. So
Mhm.
it's, it's not that I discount that. I think some of these things we'd have to evaluate and look to see the appropriateness of it.
Mhm. Okay. All right, last call.
Madam Chairman?
Go ahead, Mr. Panico.
Yes, I was wondering if the applicant could provide the commission with a perspective of the rear side of the building, especially as viewed from the angle, because you have all these different levels, the parking level, the structure is set back, parts of the structure project towards the walkway itself. And I think the commission would understand better how these things play back and forth with each other. If we could get a rendering or a perspective or something of that back corner. Is
Mhm.
that possible, John?
Again, anything is possible. So
Yeah, I would find that
dollars,
extremely helpful. Yeah.
But, I can look into that.
Just to clarify, Tony, what are you referring to? This is the rear elevation. This is the
Well, the
portion of the
riverside.
building. Huh?
What they call it the rear, it's the rear elevation.
Right, this is
And
the
in
rear
that
elevation.
it doesn't do justice looking at a two-dimensional drawing,
Right,
because half of that building is recessed. It's at the other end of the parking deck.
right, exactly.
So there's much more
this end is-
interest if it's
yeah.
looked at prospectively.
This portion here where my cursor is
Here,
is
it's
at
not
the
up.
other
You
side.
got the
Yeah.
list,
Drawing.
Attorney Thomas. It's not up.
It's not up. Hold on.
You got
We will
the.
try this again. I'm gonna get to be better at this as we go along. So just hold on. I need to have by the way, this weekend, my 8-year-old granddaughter from LA will be out visiting. So if we, maybe she'll be here when we continue the public hearing and I can hire her to do this. Okay, is it up now? Is
Yes,
it up now? Okay, so this portion of the building is set back.
right.
Correct.
This portion of the building is on the Riverwalk.
Overlooks
Am I
the
correct,
Riverwalk.
John? John, is that
Well,
correct?
it's that portion of the building, if you remember from our, tech meeting, that portion of the building, that lake used to be flush with the garage, the lower level garage.
Mhm.
And so I was requested to look at that, and I took, and as a matter of fact, I think you have one of my drawings shows that was pushed back 28 feet from the Riverwalk. So that's not flush with the river. I mean, it's
No,
It's the,
I just think, you
I
have
didn't mean
different
flush with
things
the
going
Riverwalk.
on there.
Okay, I
No,
think the
it's-
important thing is that there is an elevation
there you
shown
go.
as if you
Yeah.
were standing on the train trestle behind the building that we had earlier on the agenda. I think that would be very helpful. I think that's the angle that Mr. Panico may be referring to.
Mhm.
So you can get a perspective of the depth of the building and how it would look if someone was to be looking from the river, from the bridge that's being remodeled, even though it's a little distance down. But your cover sheet shows is a beautiful artist rendering of it, of the front and the right side. I think it would be important to have one done of the flip side.
Yeah, I'll take a look at that.
Okay. All right, anything else, Mr. Panico?
No, that's it.
Okay, anything else from any of the commissioners? Okay.
Now, one of the things that I do want to make sure that and that is that, as part of this overall design for the building, it was also a challenge to deal with the continuation of the Riverwalk.
Mhm.
The Riverwalk, where it is right now, is, I believe, at elevation 15 or 18.
Mhm.
Okay, where it has to exit out is at 26 or 20, I think it's 27 or 28 feet. So, you have, I believe it was about 12 or 13 feet of difference. The worst part of it is that it's not at the road level that we have an issue. It's next to the railroad tracks. So there was, the portion of the back of the garage is also acting as a retaining wall for the Riverwalk. So and again, I'll take a look to see how the drawing can be rendered in a way that it depicts that.
Okay,
Okay,
all right. So if there's no further information from the applicant, if there's no further questions from the commission or Mr. Panico or staff, is there a motion to continue the public hearing for application 20-22?
I'll make
I'll
that
make the
motion.
Okay, there's a motion from Commissioner Parkins to continue application 20-22. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Commissioner Mono has seconded. So on the motion made by Commissioner Parkins, seconded from Commissioner Mono to continue the public hearing for application 20-22. We'll do a roll call. Commissioner Kelly?
Aye.
Okay. Commissioner Laskos?
Aye.
Commissioner Parkins?
Aye.
Commissioner Moto?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion has passed 5-0. Okay, staff will schedule this application an upcoming meeting. From what I understand from the email that was sent earlier, it would also be continued to August 18th. Final,
Thank you.
go ahead.
I was just saying, thank you very much.
You're
That's all.
very welcome,
Me,
Attorney
yeah.
Thomas. Good night, and good night, Mr. Getz.
Good night.
Okay, thank you all.
You're welcome.
Welcome.
Final item on the agenda is a notation that the July 13th, 2021 minutes are available on the website for review, and they'll be on an upcoming agenda for approval. And most likely the minutes for this evening would be available as well. And seeing that there's no other item on the agenda, the chair declares the meeting to be adjourned as of 8:14 p.m. Thank you, everyone.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.
See you next week.
So soon.
So-